So a really, really, really important part of the onboarding process is the part where you set expectations with your clients. So that's why we're going to go over this now, because a really quick win to improve your onboarding is to tighten up the expectations. Okay. So what we're talking about here is, firstly, the expectations around the communication. So when, how, and where can your clients expect to communicate with you? This is really important because down the line, sometimes we can feel like, are we doing enough? Are we doing too much? Clients are expecting too much from me. Clients are not reaching out to me at all. A lot of that comes down to just not effectively communicating the boundaries around communication. Okay, so at the start, it's just being quite clear, letting clients know, how do they contact you? Is it through WhatsApp? Is it through email? Is it exclusively through an app? Or is it through multiple places, which is quite confusing? Okay, so try to limit it to as few places as possible. Not only that, when can they expect a reply from you? Is it that they can expect a reply every day at any time? I wouldn't recommend that. So setting the boundaries in advance, so then you won't feel guilty when you are taking time off. You won't feel guilty when you're having the evenings off or the weekends off. Okay, as long as you've communicated that in advance, and even communicating what happens if you go on holiday. Okay. And what's important here as well is not just communicating almost what's expected from your end, but also what you want from the client. So how would you like them to communicate with you? What sort of things would you like them to be telling you about? How often would you like them to be keeping in touch? Another thing that we would like to set the expectations around is the check-in process, because we know how important the check-in process is, right? It's a fundamental part of coaching. So the clients need to know, how is it that they check in? They need to know what the importance of it is or what the purpose is of the check-in. And they also need to know what happens in advance if they miss it. Okay, so they're very clear on the expectations. So is it that once they miss it, they have to wait the following week? Is it that if they miss it once, then you'll do it? What happens if they miss the check-in? Okay, so that needs to be crystal clear so that in the future, if they are missing check-ins and then you say, oh, well, I'm not going to do it, they're not going to be frustrated because they know in advance what's going to happen. Okay. Another point to put in here is if you have certain requirements around the check-in process. For example, would you like your clients to do the check-in form at their laptops? Or would you like them to do it on their phone? Or is there anything particular about the check-in process? Here is the time to also mention that. Okay, I would recommend asking clients to do the check-in on a computer, or letting them know to really take some time, 10-15 minutes, and really thinking through the check-in process, because that way they're going to get the most out of it. Okay, whereas if it's just on their phone and they're just doing it quickly on the run, it might negate some of the benefits. Another important thing to communicate is the responsibilities part. So what is it? What is your promise to them? What is it as a coach you are going to do that's going to help them? Okay, this might be in terms of, what effort you're willing to put in, or the ways in which you're going to help. I'm going to provide you this training program, which I'm going to change this frequently. And I'm also going to support you with your nutrition, and I'm going to do this. But also, what do your client have to do? Do they have to let you know when barriers arise? Do you expect them to be checking in? Would you like them to be updating you regularly? Okay, so just having that conversation around responsibilities, so it's crystal clear at the start, super useful. Another one, letting them know what you do and don't support with. You don't necessarily have to communicate this one, but it's really important for you to know this one. Okay, so knowing your scope of practice, knowing what challenges you're willing to work with and which ones you aren't. Okay, so when will you support mental health, and at what point will you refer? Okay, how will you know that a person is engaging in disordered eating, or if it's an eating disorder, and what is going to be your process around that? Okay, if somebody is struggling with their personal life, is that something that you are going to be chatting to them about and asking them about, or is that something that you're not going to address? Okay, so just in this process, really clearly knowing what it is that you do and what it is that you don't support with. That's going to really massively save you a lot of stress down the line, and it's going to help your clients down the line as well. And then the final one, really important, is making sure there are clear expectations from both sides in terms of the results and the process. So clients know what it is that they can expect, what will be required of them to get those outcomes, just so you have that, you're coming from that same place. Okay, because a lot of the stuff that we're talking about in terms of the psychological component it can be stemmed down to the initiation of the relationship, and it can come down to these expectations. So if somebody is expecting something and they get something else, that is when the dissatisfaction arises. That's when we see the poor adherence. Whereas if you've clearly communicated it at the start, it really helps with the buy-in. Okay. And also just so they understand the process. What is this going to look like? If we zoom out, what can they come to expect? That can be really helpful for some people as well. And get initial commitment. All right. After we've done that, we want the clients to tell us that they understand and they agree to these expectations. They agree and they're going to commit to checking in, even when they don't adhere. They're agreeing to do their responsibilities. Okay. That initial check-in or that initial check-in contract can be a really useful behavior change tool when clients are starting out. Now, the last thing I want to mention here is the importance with your program of actually mapping it out. Now, you might be taking an almost humanistic approach to coaching, which is like, where you will be addressing the barriers as they come. You'll be working as if it's a whole person, and you may not necessarily have a step-by-step process because everybody's different, right? And we know that change isn't necessarily linear. But having said that, it's really useful for most clients to understand things in terms of phases or cycles or processes or systems. Okay, so actually having a way that you're going to map it out to clients, really, really useful. Whether that be a diagram like at the top, when there's like an arrow, you complete this phase, then you're on to this phase and this phase. Whether it be a pyramid, so it gives the impression that they're going to build upon the stuff that they've learned previously. Or whether it be like a roadmap. Okay, this is really, really useful, and we don't have to put times around it, but it's good for you to know as well, so that you know what it is that you're doing with a client. Like, for example, the way that I like to look at this when it comes to person's relationship, for example, with food or their relationship with exercise, is the first thing will be the awareness phase. So in this phase, it'll be all about them discovering what's going on for them, discovering their barriers, discovering their relationship to these things. The next step will be putting it into practice and starting to behave differently. And then the final step will be to automate it. So the final step is when it gets solidified and they're able to do it without having to think about it. So that gives clients 3 clear steps that they're working towards. With you, it might be different, and you might have different ones. You might have one that's more on the training side of things. So first of all, clients have to learn these basic skills. They have to develop a basic level of strength training before they progress up a pyramid. With nutrition, it could be that you want them to learn these foundational skills, and then they can move on to different kind of skills. Whatever it is, it can be helpful to have these kind of processes. And in that way as well, clients know where they're at. It provides even more motivation. It can provide excitement, and they can trust in the process, especially if the outcomes aren't necessarily being there straight away. So all in all then, that rounds off the kind of section on onboarding and the sort of things that we need to be focusing on when we onboard a new client. So let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next session all about the check-in process.